Imagine a floating landfill twice the size of Texas drifting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But here's the thing, it's not really an island that you can stand on. It's a swirling, invisible threat that is made up of millions of particles of microplastic, abandoned fishing nets, and pieces of trash. And it's all trapped in one of the most remote locations on planet Earth. It's so big that it could even cover entire countries. What if I told you that every single piece of plastic or trash that you ever used could still be out there somewhere in this toxic soup? Things like plastic water bottles, straws, shopping bags. They don't just disappear. They end up in our oceans and create an even bigger crisis that threatens marine life, our food, and even our health. So let's explore the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Let's find out how it's formed, what's really in it, and let's talk about the groundbreaking efforts that are going into actually cleaning it up. You're going to want to stick around because this is one of the biggest issues facing our planet today, and it's affecting each and every single one of us. So, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. You might have heard about it before, but let's break it down. What is it really, and how did it get there? Okay, first off, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch isn't a solid island, as I mentioned earlier. It's more like a giant soup of floating debris made mostly of plastic, and it's scattered across massive area in the Pacific Ocean. I mean, it's really massive. The area is so big that people compare it to the size of Texas, and some estimates put it at twice the size of Texas. Now, I know that sounds terrible in itself, but here's the crazier part. That's not the only garbage patch in our ocean today. There's actually 5 different ones that are out there. The 5 garbage patches can be found in the North Pacific, South Pacific, North Atlantic, South Atlantic, and the Indian Ocean. So how did all this trash end up here? Well, it all starts on land, where our excessive use of these things leads to a problem with being able to discard them properly, right? So once we start having that issue, they end up in rivers, and those rivers flow into oceans, and that's how they end up in circulation, if you will. Once the river spits it out into the ocean currents pick it up, and these ocean currents act like giant conveyor belts that are moving trash all over the globe. Now, once those conveyor belts or ocean currents come together, they're called a gyre. So in the Pacific, we have the North Pacific Gyre, which is where currents create sort of a vortex, trapping plastic and other debris into one area and kind of keeping it contained there. So it creates this spinning effect that eventually keeps it into one spot. And unfortunately, because plastic doesn't break down easily, it stays there for years. And when it does stay there, it just increases in size because it's helping collect more and more trash. Now, the garbage patch is mostly made up of microplastics, and just so you know, microplastics are the tiny particles that break down from the larger pieces of plastic. But the thing is, it's not just microplastics. There are large items like fishing nets, bottles, and even shoes. Now, one of the saddest things is how marine life can mistake these pieces of plastic and trash for food. And unfortunately, it is fatal. Another thing that happens, part of this garbage patch, are the nets, right? And some people have referred to them as ghost nets, which are just nets that are left behind that get entangled with other pieces of debris in the ocean. And they act as a binder, which allows more garbage to connect to it and expand, right? Things get stuck, things can't get out, the fish included. But all that means to you is that the longer it drifts, the more trash and microplastics and things like that it has the potential to collect, leading to it growing over time, which is a pretty scary thought. It's not just terrible to see or terrible to look at, and it's not only an environmental issue in itself, it's a major, major threat to ocean ecosystems. Microplastics attract toxic chemicals, and when fish eat them, those toxins move up the food chain, potentially affecting from everything from small marine animals to large predators. Now, I know I say this often about eating seafood, but the people that do eat seafood will also be affected by it because at the end of the day, you are what you eat. So if these marine life are eating trash, debris, microplastics, eventually the chemicals that are found inside of them and even the pieces that couldn't break down any further end up in your system. So it's just something to know, and another good reason that we shouldn't A, litter and dump garbage into our oceans, but B, consume seafood. Now, there are a number of solutions out there that people have explored, organizations have tried, but one of the more famous ones for tackling this huge undertaking is one that's being done by the Ocean Cleanup. They're a pretty famous ocean conservation nonprofit organization. And what they're actually doing is developing a technology that essentially are these floating barriers that are attached to this giant net. This device or apparatus is drifting in the water, slowly collecting as much garbage as it can. Now, as it collects garbage, it also pushes it over to a collection area, which is then later removed by some of their vessels and crew members by actually pulling the nets out and sorting the trash for proper destruction or recycling. Now, that's not easy, and it's a huge patch of garbage, so it will take a lot of time and effort. But there is something that we need to do before any of these solutions have a chance at working. And that would be things like preventing plastic from entering the ocean in the first place. Groups of people all over the world are dedicated to cleaning up plastic and debris that could potentially end up in our oceans, which is amazing, and their efforts are truly applauded. But there's things that we need to do at home to help their efforts, which then in turn help the bigger efforts, right? This snowball effect. So this is where we come in by making small changes at home, reducing single-use plastics, properly disposing of your trash, separating things so that they could be disposed of properly. These are just very simple things that we can do at home that will help reduce the amount of ocean plastic or plastic entering the ocean. Like I said, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is a incredibly complex issue, but the good news is that we are starting to tackle it. And remember, these major problems with these major solutions can only work if everyone is doing their part down the line. Now, I'm not saying that as in the sense of a food change, because everyone matters. But I understand that it's difficult for an individual or a small group to complete a large task without the available or necessary resources or even funding. But remember, each person doing their part might inspire someone else to do their part. And the more people that are inspired by the change to do the right thing to help protect our oceans, the better chances we have to actually solve some of the crises that we are facing today. If you found this message interesting, please do not forget to like and comment below. Watch the next video for more videos on how we can help protect the ocean. And remember, together, we can make a difference one swell at a time.